Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Reverend Sylvester Hampton. Once again, one man of God, unfiltered. Welcome to my channel. Today's lesson is going to be called A Bird's Eye View of the Book of Ruth. I would like for you to just be patient with me. I'm going to try to walk you through my bird's eye view. I'm going to be jumping all around, but I'm going to try my best to give it to you as the Holy Spirit gave it to me. I think that at the end, I told you that I will be talking about, it's going to be, this is the week of Father's Day. And this week is going to talk about the importance of the legacy of men. And I told you that I am an image consultant of men. And so all my stuff is talking about how important men are in our society and how important the image of God is when he made man in his image. And the Book of Ruth, by the end of my presentation, you're going to see that God's image is there, and God always has a way of coming back to showing you how truly beautiful and how beautiful he is, and you get a lesson out of it. But sometimes what happens is that when we talk about certain things, we don't get the lesson that God is trying to convey to us. And I think that when we talk about the Book of Ruth, we talk about the wrong thing. And what my bird's eye view is going to demonstrate is that we've been looking at the wrong thing for a long time. So by the time I get through with talking about the Book of Ruth from a bird's eye point of view, you're going to see how truly important God is. Now, the Book of Ruth is one book that don't even mention God once in it. But you're going to see his presence in the Book of Ruth once I get through. You're going to see his personality and his presence and his lesson in it, even though he's not mentioned in it at all. Jesus Christ and is not even mentioned one time in the Book of Ruth. And I think that the Book of Ruth is one of the books that he's not mentioned. Okay, and that is one of the books in the Bible, the 66 books, that he is not. That characteristic is carried in the book. Now, the Book of Ruth has to deal with. It starts out in the city of Bethlehem. The city of Bethlehem, and it started out with just two couples. The two couples is Naomi. Elimelech and his wife Naomi. They had two sons. Bethlehem was a city that was in chaos, and it was a city that was going through a famine, and the food was running low, and the people were doing their own thing. And it was lawlessness in the city, and people were doing their own thing. And so Elimelech was a husband who was well respected in that city. So he felt that he needed to move his family to a place where they can find food to survive. So he felt that he needed to take them to a place called Moab. Moab was a place that Bethlehem was a Christian place, and that was a place that was they believed in God. And Moab was not a Christian place, but he knew that they had substance there, so he wanted to move his family there, taking an opportunity, taking a chance that they were going to go to Mount Moab to find food so that his family will not starve. So he gathered his family together to go to a place called Moab. They finally made it to a place called Moab. At that place, him and his 2 sons and wife settled there. They found a place to live. They survived. Their place, their life was met with some kind of there were some bumps in the road, but they did survive. But it was kind of tough, but they made it. The boys grew up. They took on some wives that was from that foreign land, and so the 2 boys married women from the land of Moab. They were looked upon as foreigners from a foreign land, but their sons did marry some women from Moab. Their sons grew up and everything, but what happened was Naomi, whose name means pleasant, the husband passed away. Now, back in those days, women could not own anything. They relied on their husbands to get anything. So when a husband passed away, his ownership, whatever he owned, their wives' property and his property went to the oldest son. And the oldest son, or male heir, which was the oldest son, maintained the property, the family property. So the wife still maintained the property, had the use of the property, so she was still able to live in that house, and utilize the property that the husband had, that they accumulated together. Okay, so she still had the 2 sons, so they were going to take care of their mama. Okay, I told you that men are very important. The covering of a man over a woman was very, very, very important. Unlike today, women are thinking that they don't need a man, and I told you that God always had a covering over a woman, for a man over a woman, and that is very important. It started from the day one. The importance of a man covering a woman was very important, and I've talked about that in the past. This Ruth was that. Elimelech was her husband that covered Naomi, his wife, and sons. When the sons got married, they went out on their own. They covered their wives. Now, when the father passed away, they got their mama and covered their mama and took care of their mother, because the father's property came under the sons or the oldest son. That's there's what they call a kinsman redeemer. The kinsman, the property went to the oldest son, who was the kinsman. The property came to him, of the father. Remember, the male heir. Remember, women couldn't own anything. So what happened was Naomi had 2 sons. The 2 sons were married to Moabite women. Those 2 sons, she lost her husband. Unfortunately, she lost her 2 sons also. The 2 sons passed away. So this woman lost 2 sons and a husband. So she was a widower with 2 daughter-in-laws. The 2 daughter-in-laws, they were in a foreign land. Now Naomi was in Moab. Moab was a foreign land to her. The daughters came from Moab. So because they were widowers and still young, Naomi said to the daughter-in-laws that because you're still young, you have my blessings to stay here, and perhaps you're still young and fertile. You could perhaps have a chance to get married again in your own land. So stay here, and I'm going to go back to Bethlehem and try to live among my own people, because I can't live here. I don't have anything. Because this is a widower. That's the reason why God in the Bible, he always takes care of the widowers, because the widowed women are women that are very vulnerable. They are the most vulnerable people there are. And vulnerable is something that is vulnerable is substance to physical and emotional attack or harm, and it is something that you're in danger, and you are at the a woman that is not covered by her husband or a father is the most vulnerable person walking the face of the earth. Is the most vulnerable human being there is, because she's at the behest and the mercy of everything out there, because she cannot protect herself, and she cannot protect anything. She's at the mercy of everybody. She can't own anything, and she can't keep anything, because anybody can take anything that she has. She's at the mercy. You see how vulnerable? That's the reason why God wanted us to take and pay attention and be kind to the widowers. That's what he's talking about, because the widower can't own anything. Now, in today's modern society, once a woman loses her husband, she can own what he has. So she don't lose ownership. So that's the difference from where it was back in the day. Back in the day, she couldn't own anything without a man. Now, it's just recently that back in the 60s and the 70s, back in the 60s, a woman could not go to a bank and get a credit card on her own without her husband's signature. You remember? You ask your grandmama. There was a time when a woman could not get a credit card or get anything credit, buy furniture on credit without her husband's signature. There were some times where, there was a business called Princess House or Tupperware or something like that. Those pyramid schemes. These companies that you would sell stuff. they wanted you to go in as a couple, husband and wife team, to sell their products, because they felt that as a husband and wife team, as a team, you would sell better as a team instead of individuals. Okay, so a husband was very, very important in business. So it's not far fetched. This stuff about woman don't needing a man is something that Satan wants you to do, because he wants you to be vulnerable. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Now I digress, but we're going back to the overview, the bird's eye view of Ruth. Now, once Ruth lost her husband, Elimelech, and she lost her 2 sons, she was stuck with the 2 daughter-in-laws. She told the 2 daughter-in-laws, hey, look, we're in Moab. Why don't y'all stay here? I'm going to go back to Bethlehem. One daughter reluctantly says, okay, I'm going to go back. But Ruth says, no, I'm going to stay with you. Now, in the book of Ruth, 1st chapter, verses 16 through 18, it says that, but Ruth replied, I'm coming from the New International Version. It says, but Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and where you be buried, may the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely. If anything but death separates you and me. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. Okay. It says that, and I skipped something. Let me start over again. It says that, but Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. Ruth was determined to stay with her mother-in-law. She determined to stay with her mother-in-law. So she went back to Bethlehem with her mother-in-law, Naomi. When they arrived back to Bethlehem, now, Ruth was a young girl. She still had age about herself. She still had her age and was still appealing and could still get a husband. And she still had her energetic. Her mother-in-law was hit the wall, so to speak. So Ruth was dedicated to her mother-in-law, and she stuck with her mother-in-law. So she helped her mother-in-law out and stayed with her. And what happened was, when Naomi got back to Bethlehem, the whispers in the crowd among the women says that, is that Naomi? Elimelech, she had a husband. Now her husband was well respected in the land, so he was no pushover. He was kind of well respected, and he was kind of something. And so he was one of the top people in the city, and he was landowner also. He wasn't no. He had some money, but remember I told you that without your husband, that money, and you don't have any sons for the money to go to, or that land to own, you don't have anything. A widower could not inherit anything that did not go back to her husband. That's where Boaz came in. You'll see. Now, Naomi, they were saying, the women were saying, Naomi, what happened to you? What's going on? Naomi says, don't call me Naomi. Call me Myra. Naomi means pleasant. Her name Naomi means pleasant. She says, stop calling me Myra. Myra means bitter, because she lost her husband, lost her 2 sons, so she became back real bitter. So she says, call me Myra, because names meant something back in the day. So she says, don't call me Myra, which means bitter. So that was, she came back as a bitter woman. Now, there was a strong bond between her, Ruth and Naomi, and there was a love between those two, and that was what the story was all about. Now, Ruth was doing things to go and get food for her mother-in-law so that they can eat. Back in the day, there was a thing called gleaning. Gleaning, that meant that the farmers in the field was able to harvest their field, to take their crops to the marketplace to sell their crops to make money. But they were supposed to leave some of their crops, some of their stuff around the field behind for the foreigners and the poor to get some food. That was their way of their tithes and offering to the poor. So the poor was able to eat. That was their way of leaving something for the poor. So the farmer, the owners of the land, purposely left some food or some of their crops behind, so that the people, after their workers come and pick all their crops to take to the marketplace, they had some crops that was left behind, so that the people can take the remaining crops to eat. So that's called gleaning. So one of the farmers called Boaz, he was a rich landowner. He noticed that Ruth was gleaning for Naomi. He asked his foreman, "Hey, what's this? Who's that Moabite woman? What's her story?" The foreman told her about Naomi, and that was Naomi's daughter-in-law. At the time, Boaz knew that Elimelech was his relative. That was his widow woman. So he says, "Whoa, okay, wait a minute. that's my relative's widow, and that's his daughter, her daughter-in-law, because she's doing that for my relative's wife. Leave her some extra stuff to make sure that it make her life a little bit easier. And he went to talk to her and said, "Hey, look, it's I want you to know that I heard about your story. I admire you. Thank you for taking care of this woman. She was married to my relative, and my hat's off to you for taking care of her. So you can come to my field and you can feel safe. Nothing will happen to you. You can come and glean in my field anytime you want." So he instructed his foreman to leave her extra stuff to make sure that she has some food left behind, so that she could feed Naomi and her. So he was a kind landowner and very compassionate, and he was a God-fearing man. So what happened was, when Ruth came back and told Naomi who this man was, Naomi said, "Wait a minute, he's part of my husband's family," and she realized that he was a kinsman. He was a kinsman redeemer. He could redeem her. Back in the day, a kinsman could redeem you and you could marry a person that was in the family again, and that land that belonged to your husband went to the person that was and it would stay in the family lineage, and it will stay in your family. So you would be still able to utilize that property. So that's the reason why if your brother passed away, you could marry your brother's widow, or your uncle passed away, you could marry your uncle's wife, or that kind of stuff, as long as it stayed in the family. The surviving male heir could marry the deceased widower. So that's how it goes, and you had a duty to do so that she would be able to survive. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything. It has to do with ownership and survival. Okay, so all you devious thinking people, it has everything to do with ownership and taking care of your relative. That's all, because she couldn't own anything in her name. That's what it has to do with. Now, going back to the importance of a man and the covering of a man is very important. It goes back to where we talk about the importance of the covering. Everything has to do with the covering of a man covering a woman. Now, Boaz was very, very impressed with the way Ruth was taking care of her mother-in-law, who was Elimelech's wife. Okay, her mother-in-law. He was very impressed with that, the loyalty that she had, and he was very impressed with that. She never asked. She didn't have to be here. She gave up her land, her people, her God, and her beliefs, her family, and came to be with a foreign land and followed her mother-in-law. He was very impressed with that, the loyalty. Now, what women don't understand is that men was made in the image of God. God poured his attributes into a man when he made Adam. When God poured his attributes and made man in his image, man still has some of God's attributes. Remember, I told you that a woman always has to be covered by a man, because the woman is the most vulnerable human being that ever walked the face of this earth. She has to be covered by a man, and once she's covered by a man, she's plugged into a man, and she becomes whole. She couldn't own anything at all. So both Ruth and Naomi were out there by themselves and only relied on the kindness of strangers. They were out there. They couldn't protect or own anything because they didn't have a covering of a man. This is the importance. The same thing that you need to have a covering. God made man in his image. The family of your family is like heaven. Is like the family of God. Each household is a family of God. He duplicates his heaven and his family over and over and over again. Your household is a duplication of God's kingdom over and over and over again. You run it like God runs his world. And the man is over his family as God is over the world. So, when a man is over his family, he's the covering of his family. And the reason why God says you respect the covering of your family, the cover, or you respect the man as he respects me, is because the attributes of a man is duplicated like God. He duplicates things over and over again. So the covering of your family is the head of household is man, and over him is God. The same attributes of your covering of your household is like God. Your legacy goes through that man, through the family. The children belongs to the man. The woman is vulnerable. She plugs into the man and she's covered by the man. The book of Ruth is showing you that covering is very important. So Boaz took these two women, covered Ruth. Now, when Naomi knew that Boaz was the kinsman redeemer, Ruth didn't know anything about a kinsman redeemer. Ruth had to explain to her what a kinsman redeemer was, and she realized that Boaz was able to redeem her through Ruth. So she explained that to Ruth. She got a plan and got Ruth to confront Boaz, because Boaz was very impressed with Ruth in the first place, because Ruth was a nice looking girl, and he was impressed with her dedication to her mother-in-law, who was the distant relative of his. Now, Boaz realized that there was somebody else that was in the chain, that was over, that was eligible before him to be the kinsman redeemer, because there was somebody else that was eligible to be the kinsman redeemer before him. So he wasn't the first one to have, someone else had to turn down before he was the second man in line. So he had to go to that relative and say, hey, look, I will be the kinsman redeemer, but you're the one that's the first one in line. So do you want to marry Ruth and get Eliminate's land, and but you have to marry Ruth? He says, oh heck, this is a foreign woman. No, I don't want to marry her. He doesn't mind getting the land, but he didn't want to marry no foreign woman. That was his big turnoff. So he said he turned it down. So that gave Boaz the opportunity to go ahead and marry her. Now, the night before he did that, Naomi got Ruth to go to Boaz and propose marriage to Boaz. So Ruth had to ask Boaz for his covering. So Naomi got Ruth to think outside the box and ask Boaz for his hand to get him to cover her, because Boaz wasn't going to do it if it wasn't for. But Boaz was very impressed with her, and their relationship gotten closer. So she said, go right ahead and ask him. So she did, and she asked Boaz to cover her, and so Boaz says, hey, look, I'm very impressed. I'm old, and I'm very impressed that you would ask this old man, even though there are younger guys younger than me that would love to have you, but you ask me. So I'm very impressed. So, but there's somebody else that I need to ask, because he has the first turn down. So that's when he asked the relative, and the relative turned him down and said, nah, you go right ahead and do it. So Boaz says, I gotta go ask this man, my relative first, and I'll get back to you. The next day, he came back and said, okay, I'll do it, because he turned you down. He didn't want to marry you. So, long story short, they got married, and Boaz knew Ruth. They had a child together, a son. And the son was called Obed. He turned out to be the grandfather of King David. Obed became the grandfather of King David. And shortly after Boaz impregnated Ruth, he died. So Obed was the son that owned all the stuff. So Ruth was didn't have to worry about ownership, because she had a son. That's the importance of a man back in the day, because the man covered and was the owner of the thing. So he was the ownership, and that was the importance of having a man in your household, because he became the owner of things, and he covers the mama. Okay, so the Book of Ruth, I think that we miss reading the importance of a man in a woman's life. We're going off on a tangent, and we have diminished the importance of a man, and the importance of the way the personality of a man versus God. Remember, Ruth was very loyal to her mother-in-law. Her loyalty and her was very good. What you don't understand and what you fail to get out of this story, or should I say glean out of the book of Ruth, was the fact that Ruth was loyal to her mother-in-law. She had faith. Faith is the evidence of things unseen. Okay, and she put it out there, and she did not try to do things that she wanted to do. She did things that tried to better for somebody else. And she reverenced her mother-in-law. Remember, I told you that the first step to a blessing is reverence. She reverenced her mother-in-law, and she reverenced her God and her people. That's where she got her blessings. She reverenced first. When you reverence first, a woman's blessing comes from a reverence. You reverence a man. A man loves you first. Once you look at what happened with Boaz, he gave this woman blessings. He blessed her. He loved her. He blessed her. He found favor in her. It wasn't anything that she did. She reverenced her mother-in-law first, and through that reverence, that's when he saw the reverence, and he saw that he started blessing her. Women, you don't understand that it's not anything that you do. It's a reverence. This stuff about I gotta love my husband, I can't marry him, I'm looking for a man that I can love and get married. That's a lie from the pit of hell. You're not supposed to, your duties is not to love your husband. You're supposed to reverence him first. Once you reverence a man, all your blessings will come. Because a man gives you all the blessings you need. All you have to do is reverence him. And you will learn to love him later. That's not the motivator for a man to bless you, to love you. Man loves just as God first, he loved the world, so he first loved and he gave. God first loved and he gave. Just the way man does. He loves you and he gave. That's how men are. That's our nature. But you are looking at it from satanic point of view. You want to use a man and get everything you can out of the man and use him. And you measure his ability to give to you, and you use him and you leave him. And you call him a sucker. Men are wising up now. We ain't going through that anymore. Because you have tarnished what love is all about. You have taken advantage of our love. And you destroyed the way God intended. You see, Satan has crept into your psyche. And you have turned it against yourself. Because you're thinking that we're equal. You're not equal. And you have turned away from the person that is supposed to be training you to be a wife. Your father. Your father trains you to be a wife. And your father trains you to be what a man looks for. The one man that you're supposed to reverence and respect, you turn against and you say you don't need him. Anytime you turn your back on the one, your trainer, your true parent, you're out there. And the Book of Ruth has demonstrated how a man is the covering, how important a man is. That is the overall view that you should be getting out of the Book of Ruth. But what women love to preach about Ruth is how strong, independent women are. We don't need no man because the man died and we don't need nobody. We're looking for our Boaz. They got the wrong message. That's a lie from the pit of hell of feminism crap. They done turned the Book of Ruth around and made it a feminist crap. Feminism is one of Satan's tools to destroy what God has put together. That is one of Satan's weapons of mass destruction. Feminism. Making you think you don't need no man. And so what you have done is every chance you get, you talk about the Book of Ruth. Anytime there's a preacher, a female preacher gets up there, she wants to talk about the Book of Ruth and shows how independent women are. That's a lie from the pit of hell. You done missed the point of the Book of Ruth. No, the Book of Ruth shows you how important men are, and shows you how dependent you are on a man. You got it all wrong. You got it all wrong, and shows you how important God has his blueprint of how things are supposed to go. You got it all wrong. That's the reason why women don't need to be up there preaching. Because they mess things up. They're not called to preach. The only people that think the women are called to preach those 20-cent men. The men that were born and raised by women. Don't get me started. Now, let me see. A kinsman redeemer. I told you about the kinsman redeemer. It's designed to have the family legacy can continue on, and that's the way it's and it established hope. That established hope in Ruth. That the legacy of the family still goes on. When Ruth laid at Boaz's feet and asked him to cover her with her garment, his garment, she was asking him for his covering. Remember, I told you that the man has to cover the woman. That's symbolic. Can't you get it? That's very, very important. Very important. I told you that a woman never, ever, ever going to go uncovered. Never. She's covered by her father and then covered by her husband. Covered by her father, covered by her husband. Amen? Once she's covered, she plugs into her husband and she becomes a whole human being. She plugs into her husband to become a whole human being. Until then, she's just 25 cents, a quarter. When she was created out of the rib of man, she was just a body. Just a body of just emotion. God wouldn't talk to someone that's emotional. She's delusional. That's the reason why when you talk to a woman that's not covered, you can tell the difference between a woman that's covered by her husband or a father versus a woman that is not covered at all. You can put them both side by side and ask them different questions, and you can see which one moves differently. They move differently because they think differently. Now, the problem with women that are covered, they allow the uncovered women to dominate the conversations, and they allow these uncovered, uncouth women to dominate the conversation, and they don't push back. The reason why they don't say they push back because they go back to their comfortable home because they're covered by a man, and they don't have to argue. Why should I? I'm comfortable. Let her do her own thing. But the only problem with that is that you have these little girls that are seeing these women that are talking, that are dominating the conversation, and those girls are getting messages from the heathen girls, the uncovered girls. And they're thinking that they must know what they're talking about because they don't have any pushback from you decent women, the covered women. Because you're allowing those uncovered women to take the conversation and go with it. And we got to stop that. Amen. So, I know I went a little long, but I wanted to talk about the bird's eye view of the Book of Ruth. I hope and pray that I covered everything and give you a different perspective on looking at the Book of Ruth a different way. Because one way is that we have been doing it is to show the independence of a woman, that you don't need no man because those men have died, and we can do things all by ourselves. That's the way Satan wants you to preach it. And he wants you to be independent of men. And the Book of Ruth, the way that's been preached, shows you that you don't need no man. That's a lie from the pit of hell. And that's what he wants you to believe, and that's what he wants you to stay away from, because he don't want you to know that your blessings come from a man. Amen. That's when you start getting your blessings. And that's the blueprint of God. The blueprint of God is that you should not be uncovered. Okay? I want you to know that I am continue to be on the battlefield and fighting for the souls of our family. I'm going to continue to fight for the image of our men. and I, because we do have an image problem, and I am here, and I'm fighting, and I will continue to give you my prayers. I pray that the your head of households, that your family are going to continue to draw strength from you, and training from you, and your daughters will continue to draw strength from their daddy. Amen. Your son will draw strength from his proud father, and he will become a proud father himself. I love you. There's nothing you can do about it. Until the next time, this is Reverend Sylvester Hampton, one man of God unfiltered. Bye-bye.